The morning light filtered through the thin curtains of Emily's apartment, bathing her modest kitchen in pale gold. The aroma of instant coffee filled the air as she stared blankly at her phone screen. The family group chat, Family Vacation 2025, was alive with activity. Her sister Chloe had sent a dozen messages about hotel options. Her mother was talking about matching shirts, and her father was comparing rental cars. Message after message scrolled by so quickly that Emily could barely keep up. She smiled faintly, her thumb hovering over the keyboard before she finally typed, "I can handle the groceries and meals. I'll make sure everyone's fed." She hit send, then waited for a response that didn't come. The silence from her family wasn't unusual. It was almost routine. She had always been the one in the background, the one who cleaned up after family dinners, who organized birthdays, who made things work quietly while everyone else basked in the attention. She told herself she didn't mind. But deep down, the lack of acknowledgement stung like a paper cut she couldn't stop reopening. Over the next few days, Emily worked extra shifts at the small cafe where she'd been employed for the past 2 years. She spent long hours behind the counter, taking orders, cleaning tables, and smiling through exhaustion. Every tip she earned went straight into a small envelope she kept in her purse, labeled vacation. She wanted to contribute, to prove that she wasn't just the afterthought her family seemed to treat her as. Maybe, she thought, if she showed how reliable and generous she could be, they'd finally see her as more than just the quiet one. She imagined herself on the trip, laughing by the beach, cooking meals everyone loved and being thanked for once. That image kept her going as she wiped down counters long after closing time. By the end of the week, the envelope was nearly full. On her day off, Emily took a trip to the supermarket. She moved through the aisles with purpose, carefully selecting everything she knew her family liked. Chloe's favorite imported chips were placed in the basket first. Her dad loved a specific brand of jerky, so she added 2 packs. Her mom adored fresh fruit, so Emily picked the ripest mangoes she could find. She even splurged on a few premium snacks, the kind she'd never buy for herself. By the time she reached the checkout line, her cart was overflowing. As she handed over her hard-earned money, she felt a mix of pride and nervous excitement. This trip, she told herself, was her chance to belong. That night, she neatly arranged the grocery bags by the front door, ready to load them into the car the next morning. She texted her mom, "All packed for tomorrow. When are we meeting?" and waited for the familiar sound of her message being read. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Finally, her phone buzzed with a single message that made her stomach twist. "Oh, honey, didn't we tell you? There's no more room in the car. You'll have to sit this one out." Emily blinked, rereading the message, convinced she must have misunderstood. She typed back quickly, "But I already bought everything. The food, the drinks, everything for the trip." Her hands trembled as she pressed send. The reply came within seconds, cold and casual. "We'll reimburse you later. Don't be upset. It's just logistics. Logistics." That word echoed in her mind like an insult. Logistics, as if her absence was nothing more than an unfortunate scheduling issue. She stared at the bags by the door, her bags, her effort, her contribution, and felt something inside her collapse. She had worked until her feet ached, skipped lunches, and turned down nights out with friends so she could make this trip special for them. And now she wasn't even going. The next morning, her phone lit up with notifications from Chloe's social media. Against her better judgment, Emily opened one. There they were, her parents and Chloe, smiling wide in the car, the sunlight streaming through the windows. And behind them, stacked neatly in the back seat, were her grocery bags. The caption read, "Finally, family trip begins. Family time." Emily felt the air leave her lungs. She dropped her phone onto the couch and pressed her palms against her eyes until she saw stars. For a long time, she sat in silence. Anger, sadness, disbelief. They all tangled together until she didn't know what she was feeling anymore. She wasn't sure which hurt more, the betrayal or the fact that she wasn't even surprised by it. As the hours passed, she moved through her apartment like a ghost. The silence that had once been peaceful now felt suffocating. Her mind replayed every small moment of dismissal, Every time they'd forgotten to tell her something important, every time they'd brushed off her help, every time she'd been the last to know. This wasn't new. It was just the first time she couldn't pretend it didn't matter. She opened the fridge, seeing the extra snacks she'd saved for herself, just a few things she hadn't packed. She stared at them for a moment before shutting the door. She didn't feel hungry. What she felt was hollow. For the next 2 days, Emily avoided social media, but curiosity eventually got the better of her. When she finally opened it again, she saw her family at the resort pool, laughing. Her mom posted a picture of a beach dinner with the caption, "Nothing beats family bonding time." The irony hit her like a wave. Family bonding. She almost laughed. That night, as she sat in the dim light of her kitchen, Emily's phone buzzed again. This time it was a private message from Chloe. "Hey, can you check if the fridge back home is full? We forgot to restock before leaving. Also, Mom said you can come pick us up from the airport on Sunday." Emily stared at the message for a long time. Then slowly she began to smile. It wasn't the kind of smile that came from amusement or joy. It was quiet, sharp, deliberate. For years, she had played the role they expected of her. The helper, the fixer, the one who made everyone else's life easier. But something shifted inside her that night. She realized that being kind had only made them comfortable ignoring her. They didn't see her effort, they saw a convenience. And convenience could be replaced. Emily spent the rest of the evening cleaning up the untouched grocery bags and putting the items neatly away in her pantry. As she worked, her mind raced. The resentment she'd buried for years began to take shape into something new, something focused. She thought about every bill she'd covered, every errand she'd run for them without thanks. She thought about how they had the nerve to take her money, her food, and still treat her like she didn't exist. When she went to bed that night, she didn't cry. She didn't rage. She lay there quietly, her eyes tracing the faint cracks in her ceiling, and for the first time, she stopped making excuses for them. She stopped thinking about how to earn their love. She stopped feeling sorry for being left out. In the stillness of that early morning, just before sleep took her, Emily made herself a promise. This would be the last time they took her kindness for granted. She didn't know exactly how she'd do it yet, but they were going to learn that the quiet one could make a lot of noise when pushed too far. The next day, she woke up feeling strangely calm. She brewed her coffee and opened the family group chat. The messages were still pouring in. Photos, inside jokes, Chloe complaining about slow Wi-Fi. She read each one carefully, a small smirk tugging at her lips. She noticed something else, too. All the digital grocery orders and resort meal plans she had set up were still linked to her account. Her name was still on the payment profile. A small, almost invisible oversight. She closed her eyes for a moment and exhaled slowly. Maybe this wasn't the end of the story after all. Maybe for once she had the upper hand. And as the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, painting her kitchen in gold once more, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in years. Control. They had gone on her vacation without her. But what they didn't realize yet was that every bite they took, every meal they planned, every drink they poured, was hers. And in time, she'd make sure they remembered it. That was the moment Emily stopped crying and started planning. The first few days after her family left, Emily barely said a word to anyone. The silence in her apartment was sharp, but this time it didn't hurt. It was focused, calculating. She watched their vacation unfold through the filtered lens of social media, every photo dripping with false smiles and empty captions. Chloe was posing in front of the resort pool, her mom bragging about family unity, and her dad holding up a cocktail, pretending everything was perfect. Emily saw it all, but instead of feeling left out, something inside her hardened. Every new post felt like fuel to a fire she hadn't realized she had been building for years. They had stolen not just her money and effort, but the respect she'd been begging for her whole life. She wasn't going to sit quietly anymore. One evening, while scrolling through her emails, she noticed something she'd nearly forgotten, the receipts and confirmation codes for all the resort meal plans, prepaid snack packages, and grocery deliveries. Her name was still listed as the account owner. That was when the first real spark of revenge flickered in her chest. They might have left her behind, but they were still eating thanks to her. She opened her laptop and began to click through every confirmation, every order, every charge. Each one tied to her digital wallet, each one under her control. A slow, deliberate smile crept across her face as she realized just how much power she still had. Her hands trembled slightly, not from hesitation, but from excitement, as she began refunding the pending grocery orders back into her own account. One by one, the resort meal reservations disappeared. The breakfast buffet upgrade she'd booked for her family? Canceled. The prepaid picnic basket meant for their beach outing? Gone. Is the snack delivery scheduled for midweek? Reversed. It was all hers again. Every dinar she had poured into them. The system defaulted their food plan to the basic resort package. Plain meals and long waiting times. She imagined the look on their faces when they realized the endless luxury they'd been bragging about had suddenly vanished. That night, she made herself a cup of tea and scrolled through social media again. Sure enough, Chloe had posted a new story, a photo of a sad, half-eaten plate of cold pasta. The caption read, "They ran out of food halfway through dinner. This resort sucks." Emily chuckled softly. She leaned back in her chair, savoring the irony. For once, they were the ones feeling left out and inconvenienced, while she sat at home, calm and unbothered. But Emily wasn't done. Revenge, she decided, should be like a slow simmer, something that builds gradually until it's unforgettable. She thought back to the group chat that had originally included her, the one titled Family Vacation 2025. She'd been removed from it after they told her there was no room in the car, but her friend Clara still had access. Clara, who worked at a cafe not far from the very resort her family was staying in. When Emily told her the story, Clara had been furious on her behalf. So, when Emily mentioned she had a small idea, Clara didn't hesitate to help. "Just tell me what you need," Clara said over the phone. Emily grinned. "I need a little mix-up." Together, they came up with a plan. Clara would coordinate a delivery error. The resort was expecting a picnic basket that Emily had originally prepaid for, a fancy one meant for a beachfront lunch with all the premium extras. Instead of going to her family's suite, Clara arranged for it to be delivered to a completely different room. When Chloe called the front desk to complain, they had no record of the basket under their name anymore, since Emily had already canceled the payment. Emily imagined them sitting on the sand, stomachs growling, arguing about whose fault it was. By the fourth day, the happy vacation facade began to crack. Her mother texted her for the first time since leaving. "Did you touch the grocery account? The system says some payments were reversed." Emily stared at the message for a moment before typing her response slowly. "Oh, that's strange. Maybe it's just logistics." She could almost hear the tension in the silence that followed. No more heart emojis, no more photos, no more cheerful updates. For the first time, the group chat went quiet. Days passed, and Emily continued to monitor their activity with quiet satisfaction. Their once perfect vacation began to unravel piece by piece. The resort sent them notices about payment issues. The luxury meal upgrades were unavailable, and their spa appointments mysteriously got rescheduled due to system errors. Every inconvenience traced back to Emily's digital fingerprints, subtle enough that they couldn't directly accuse her, but painful enough to make them regret ever taking advantage of her. Meanwhile, Emily thrived in her solitude. She used the refunded money to treat herself to small things she'd denied herself for months. She bought a new book, a nice bottle of wine, and even splurged on fresh flowers for her kitchen table. For the first time, she wasn't spending her energy trying to please anyone. She was investing in her own peace. Each small act of self-care felt like a rebellion against years of emotional neglect. But her revenge wasn't only digital. It was emotional. She knew her family's biggest weakness wasn't hunger or discomfort, it was embarrassment. They thrived on image, on appearing perfect to the world. So when she saw Chloe post a photo captioned "Vacation Nightmare, Everything Went Wrong," Emily decided to add the final twist. Using an anonymous account, she replied under the post, "Maybe next time. Don't leave people behind who actually care about you." The comment gained a few likes before Chloe deleted it, but the damage was done. The perfect image of a loving family vacation had been cracked publicly. Emily didn't feel guilt. She felt justice. When the vacation finally ended, her family returned 3 days earlier than planned. They didn't announce their arrival. Emily only knew because she heard the sound of the front door opening while she was sipping her coffee. She turned slowly to see them standing there, sunburned, disheveled, and exhausted. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Her mom looked around awkwardly before saying, "Well, we're home." Emily set her cup down, her movements deliberate. "Welcome back," she said softly. Then she gestured toward the dining table, where she had neatly arranged the luxury food items that had never made it to the resort. The imported snacks, the fancy drinks, the premium treats, all untouched, all hers. "I figured since I wasn't invited," she continued, "I'd at least get to enjoy the food I paid for." For a moment, no one said anything. Her father opened his mouth as if to speak, but closed it again. Chloe shifted uncomfortably, her face red, not from the sun but from shame. Her mother tried to smile, but it faltered halfway. Finally, her dad cleared his throat. "You didn't have to do all that," he muttered. Emily tilted her head. "Didn't I? You didn't have to exclude me either." "But you did." Her mother's voice softened, attempting to smooth things over. "It was just a misunderstanding, Em. You know how things get complicated." Emily laughed quietly, the sound sharp enough to make them flinch. "Complicated? No, Mom. Complicated is managing 3 jobs and still being treated like I don't exist. Complicated is buying food for people who don't even think I deserve a seat in the car." She leaned back in her chair, her eyes steady. "What you did wasn't complicated. It was cruel." Her words lingered in the air, heavy and final. No one responded. They couldn't. Because deep down, they knew she was right. After a long silence, Chloe mumbled, "We said we'd pay you back." Emily smiled faintly. "Don't worry. I already got my refund." Her parents exchanged confused looks, but Emily didn't elaborate. She stood up, collected her mug, and walked toward her room. "Dinner's in the fridge," she said casually over her shoulder. "Basic meal plan. Hope that's okay." The door shut softly behind her, leaving them alone in the quiet house. In her room, Emily sat by the window, watching the evening light stretch across the street. She didn't feel triumphant or vindictive, just content. For once, she hadn't let them take something from her. For once, she'd turned their disregard into power. That night, while her family sat downstairs picking at cold leftovers, Emily opened her phone and began planning her next steps. She wasn't finished, not yet. Her revenge wasn't about making them suffer endlessly. It was about teaching them what it felt like to be invisible, to have someone pull the rug out from under you without warning. And as she drifted to sleep, the faint smile on her face said it all. This was only the beginning. The silence in the house after that confrontation was heavy, but to Emily, it was finally peaceful. For years, every word she'd spoken had been brushed aside, every effort dismissed as just what Emily does. But that night, when she had stood in the center of the living room, surrounded by the people who had taken her for granted, she had seen something she'd never seen before in their eyes: guilt. Real, sharp, undeniable guilt. And for the first time, she hadn't rushed to comfort them or soften the blow. She had let it sit, let it fester. She had walked away without explaining herself, and that silence, more than any argument, was what lingered. A week passed before they approached her again. Her mother texted first, "We need to talk. We didn't mean for things to go this way." Emily stared at the message for a long time, her thumb hovering over the keyboard, but she didn't reply right away. Instead, she let them wait, just as she had waited for them countless times before, waiting for acknowledgement that never came. It was strange how easily the roles could reverse when you finally stopped chasing approval. When they eventually sat down together in the living room, her parents looked uncomfortable. Her mother's hands twisted in her lap. Her father cleared his throat over and over, and Chloe leaned against the couch with a pout, scrolling her phone as if she'd rather be anywhere else. Emily sat across from them, calm and unmoved, her expression neutral. "It wasn't personal," her father began. "We just didn't have enough room in the car. You know how last-minute things can get." Her mother nodded quickly. "You always take things so hard, Emily. We thought you'd understand. We didn't mean to hurt your feelings." Emily leaned forward slightly, her voice level but firm. "Understand what? That my effort not matter? That I'm useful when it's convenient, but disposable when it's not?" Chloe looked up from her phone, sighing. "Oh, come on, Em, it was just a trip. You're making it sound like we abandoned you." Emily stood, walked to the kitchen, and came back with the same unopened grocery bags, the ones that had sat untouched since their so-called vacation. She set them down on the table, the sound of plastic against wood echoing through the quiet room. "That's how much I was worth to you," she said softly. Snacks and silence, no one spoke. Her father looked away, her mother's face fell, and Chloe shifted uncomfortably, as though guilt were a sweater she couldn't take off fast enough. Emily could see the discomfort in their eyes, but she didn't feel sorry. They deserved to feel it. Her mother finally whispered, "We're sorry, sweetheart. We didn't realize how much this meant to you." Emily gave a small, humorless laugh. "That's the problem. You never realize anything until it's too late." She gathered the bags and walked back to her room, leaving them to stew in their apologies. She didn't slam the door, she didn't need to. The quiet click was louder than any shouting could have been. In the following days, things were awkward. Her family tiptoed around her, unsure of how to act. Her mother tried cooking her favorite meals. Her father left cash on the kitchen counter with a note that said, "For groceries." And Chloe went unusually silent online. It was strange to see them so cautious, so aware. Emily almost felt bad, almost. But then she remembered the car driving away without her. The sound of her phone buzzing with a text that said, "There's no more room." That memory alone kept her from softening too soon. Then came Chloe's birthday a few weeks later. The perfect setup for another family event. Chloe had always loved being the center of attention, and every year was an extravagant affair. Poolside parties, catered food, the works. Emily had expected them to ignore her again, but instead, one afternoon, Chloe sent her a message. "Hey, Em, we're doing a beach party for my birthday this year. Can you help with the food again? You're the best at organizing stuff." Emily stared at the message, her lips curling into a slow smile. There it was, the cycle trying to restart. They'd hurt her, apologized just enough to feel better about themselves. And now they wanted her to fall back into her role. The helper, the silent caretaker, the reliable background character in their story. She typed back, "Sure, I'll handle everything," and hit send. The next few days were the most liberating of her life. Instead of shopping for groceries or arranging deliveries, Emily opened her laptop and began browsing travel sites. She searched for something quiet, far away from her family, something just for her. After hours of scrolling, she found it. A small seaside inn on the coast, all white linen and ocean views, the kind of place she'd always dreamed of visiting but never had the chance to. She booked it immediately. 2 nights, 3 days, all inclusive? She used the same money she would have spent on Chloe's birthday food. This time, the investment was in her own happiness. On the day of the party, Chloe texted her repeatedly, "Hey, where are you?" "Did you get the food?" "People are arriving soon." Emily didn't reply. She was already on a train heading toward the coast, the rhythmic sound of the tracks a soothing melody beneath her thoughts. She watched the scenery blur past, fields, towns, the shimmer of sunlight on distant waves, and felt a weight lift off her chest. For years she'd been the invisible one, the one who gave and gave without ever being seen. But now she was finally doing something for herself. When she arrived at the seaside inn, the air was warm and salty. The ocean stretched endlessly before her, blue and glittering, as if it had been waiting just for her. The owner greeted her with a smile, and when she opened the door to her room, she stood there for a long moment, soaking it all in. The soft bed, the view of the beach from the balcony, the sound of waves rolling gently against the shore. It all felt unreal. She kicked off her shoes, set her phone to silent, and let herself breathe. That night, as she sat on the balcony with a glass of wine and the ocean breeze on her face, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real peace. She took a photo of the view, a single table set for one, overlooking the glowing horizon where the sun met the water. She posted it to her story with a simple caption: "Sometimes the best family vacation is the one you take alone." The post went up at the exact time Chloe's party was supposed to start. Within minutes, the messages began pouring in. First from Chloe, "Are you serious right now? You ditched my party?" Then her mother, "Emily, where are you? Everyone's waiting for you!" Then finally her father, "This isn't funny. You should have told us." Emily smiled as she set her phone face down on the table. She didn't need to respond. The silence was answer enough. By the next morning, her notifications were a storm of missed calls and messages, but Emily didn't check a single one. Instead, she spent the day walking along the beach, feeling the sand between her toes, the waves washing gently around her ankles. For once, no one was calling her name. No one was asking her to fix anything. No one was using her kindness as a convenience. She was alone, but she wasn't lonely. She was free. On her last night there, she sat by the water, thinking about everything that had happened, the years of being overlooked, the betrayal, the quiet revenge. Part of her wondered if she'd gone too far, if maybe she should feel guilt. But then she remembered her mother's message that day before the trip. "We'll reimburse you later. Don't be upset. It's just logistics." That memory alone erased any trace of regret. When she returned home 2 days later, her family was waiting. Chloe looked furious and her parents looked exhausted. "Where were you?" her father demanded. Emily took off her sunglasses and smiled. "At the beach," she said simply. "I thought there wasn't enough room." The look on their faces was priceless. Shock, confusion, realization all blending into silence. For once, they had nothing to say. Emily walked past them, suitcase in hand, her steps light. She didn't owe them an explanation. Not anymore. Later that evening, as she unpacked her things, she found the seashell she'd picked up on her last walk by the ocean. She placed it on her desk, a small, beautiful reminder of the moment she chose herself over everyone else. For the first time in her life, Emily didn't feel like the forgotten one, the helper, or the backup plan. She felt like the main character in her own story. Her family could keep their half-hearted apologies and excuses. She had something far more valuable: peace, dignity, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing they'd finally learned what it felt like to be left behind. And when the next family trip came up months later and they asked if she'd join, she smiled and said, "No thanks. I already have plans." The silence that followed was sweet and freeing. Because this time she didn't need their permission to be happy. She already was.